Okay, so in this video, I am going to have you guys do a couple of practice problems, and we're going to go back through reference angles. I also want to just talk about the fact that we're moving into some sort of trigonometry because since we don't have the regents, you guys can now start preparing for what class you may take next year. So you'll basically have a head start on whether if you take pre-calculus or some other course. All right, so I'm just going to start with the degrees. So here I just drew our coordinate plane. You see on the x-axis, we have the start here. This is where we start our angles all the time. It always starts at 0 degrees, which is here. All right, and so if we're going to sketch the angle of 78 degrees, we have to understand which quadrant is that going to fall in. So I also labeled this as 90 degrees. This is 180 over here. Here I labeled this as 270, and then we go back to 360. So 78 falls between which two numbers? That is between 0 and 90, right? So this is between, I'm just going to abbreviate, it's between 0 and 90. So we can even sketch our 78 degree angle here. All right, and this is from 0, right? And we're going in that direction. We're going in the positive direction. So this will be what we can call 78 degrees. Now, since we are talking about reference angles, right? If we really want to talk about what is the reference angle, okay? If we go back to the definition, it's always the angle with this terminal side, right? This terminal side here connected to the x-axis here. So we're basically looking at this angle here, right? So because we're looking at this angle here, and because it's already connected to our x-axis, the reference angle is also going to be the same as 78 degrees. All right. So we want to make sure we know that it's in quadrant 1 as well. So it's in quadrant 1. All right, so let's just be careful. Let's move on to another example. All right. So here we are looking at 173 degrees. So we always know that the angle starts here at 0. So this is our starting side here. Let me make that look a little bit better. So we always know it starts here at 0. All right, and so 173 falls between which two numbers? Well, this is between 90 and 180. So that angle is going to come into quadrant 2. That angle is going to come into quadrant 2. So this is slightly different than the other one, right? It's a little bit, this is what we call an obtuse angle because it passes 90 degrees. All right. And so the angle that we're actually measuring starts here. We're going in the positive direction. So this is our angle. We're going in the positive direction. And it starts at the red and ends at the purple. So that's our 170 degree sketch. All right. So now if we're talking about the reference angle, we want the reference angle. We have to think, well, which side of the x-axis? We're not going to connect it to this side because the angle falls in quadrant 2. So we're going to look for the space here. This will be our reference angle. All right? And how do we figure out that? So if this is 173, and this space here is 180 as it's labeled here, we can subtract. We want to know this space here. So how far is that? Well, let's subtract. What is 180 minus 173? And if you subtract that, you will get, let's see, we get 6. No. Sorry, we get 7, all right? So we get 7. So our reference angle is 7 degrees. It's 7 degrees. And what quadrant does it fall in? It's in quadrant 2. All right. So let's move on to our third example. We are looking at 258 degrees. 258 degrees. So where does this fall between? Which of these four numbers does that fall between? 258 is past 180. It's actually before 270. So that angle will start, always it starts here, right? Let's not forget it starts here, but it will end over here. So this goes from here and we're going in the positive direction. This is a positive angle, so our angle goes in this direction. All right, this is the angle that we label as 258. It's more than 180, so it's sort of like, it looks like it's bent back a little bit, right? So this is our 258 degree angle. And let's take a look at what would the reference angle be. So let's think about the reference angle. Well, we have to connect it to the x-axis. And which x-axis side is this on? Well, it's on this side. So the reference angle will be connected here. What is the space between 258 now and 180, right? Because this is what we're looking for. This space here. So let's subtract. 258 minus 180. And we end up with 78. So our reference angle is 78 degrees. Let's make sure we just get that. Our reference angle here is 78 degrees. And what quadrant does that fall in? It falls in quadrant 3. Cool. All right, let's continue with our examples, guys. I hope you guys are doing good so far. Let's continue. All right, so now we have 347 degrees. 347 degrees. Well, which two numbers does that fall in between? Well, that's between, it's past 270, but it is before we get to 360. So it is between 270 and 360. So if it's between 270 and 360, then we can draw our angle here. Our angle comes into this quadrant. All right. And so since this is a positive angle, right, we're actually going almost all the way around. We're almost made a whole circle, but not just yet. We did not make that full circle just yet, but we did go pretty far. All right, so let's talk about the reference angle. Remember, the reference angle always connects to the x-axis. So our reference angle, we're looking not at this space, but we're looking at this space, right? So how far is that? That connects to 347 with the 360 because we're looking for this space here. So our reference angle, we would need to subtract those two numbers, right? We would have to say, well, 360 minus 347 will give us, it gave us 13. So this angle here is 13, which means our reference angle is 13 degrees. And what quadrant does it fall in? Well, that falls in quadrant 4. All right, quadrant 4. We have one, maybe actually we have two more examples because we don't want to forget something super important, you guys. We want to think about negative. So I sort of changed up the colors here so that we can see this is a different scenario, that the coordinate axes, they're labeled different here. You'll see this is the negative 90. Why? Because if we're starting at 0, when we have a negative angle, you guys, a negative angle goes into the other direction. So now our circle, right, our angles will be going in that direction rather than the other direction that we've been doing. So this case, our angle is going to start here. It's going to start here and we're going in, as I said before, we're going this way, right? We're going this way. So our negative 90 shows up here rather than at the top as it did for the other positive direction. So since this is negative, what does negative 54 stand in between? It's between 0 and 90. So we'll have our angle fall over. Let's do purple. All right, our angle falls here. And we're now, instead of going around that way, we're actually going this way. Our angle goes in the negative direction. All right, and so this is our negative 54. And our reference angle will be connected to the x-axis, right? It's still connected to the x-axis. The quadrants are still labeled the same. The quadrants don't change. We're not going in a different order there. Only thing that's changing is the direction of our angle. So here is what is our reference angle? Well, we already know this space. This space is already 54 degrees because that's here, right? We already have that. We didn't really have to create a new angle here. So our reference angle, and we always think about reference angles as always positive. It's going to be a positive 54 degrees. All right? Cool. And what quadrant does that fall in? Quadrant 4. All right? Let's also remember that the quadrants don't change. The quadrants stay the same. All right? Let's do one more example. Let's just do one more negative example so you guys get the hang of this. We're looking at negative 288 degrees. So remember, since it's negative, we are going in this direction. We're going in this direction. All right? And so now we start at 0. We always start at 0 here. We always start there. And then let's go into the negative direction. So it passes negative 90. It passes negative 180. And it actually passes negative 270. But it is right before you get to negative 360. So this negative 280, right, that will fall here. That will fall over here. Remember, we're going in this direction, so our angle goes around that way rather than the smaller part on the inside. It goes around that way because it's negative. All right, and so if we're looking for our reference angle always connects to the x-axis. But what are we looking for, you guys? We're looking for the space on the inside. All right, we're looking for the space on the inside. So how do we determine that? We want to do negative 360 and negative 288 and find the difference between that. So I'm going to just do negative 288 minus a negative 360. So this is going to basically become a negative plus this big positive. And what do we get? We get a 72. So our reference angle. Our reference angle is 72 degrees. This is our reference angle here. It's 72 degrees. And what quadrant does it fall in? Quadrant 1. Because the quadrants don't move. This is still quadrant 1 over here. It's always there. All right? Hope this was helpful. This is all you guys have to do for today. Hopefully you guys answered the questions. And I'll see you guys in the next lesson. Bye-bye.